Happy lunch hour, gang. All right, so it's mid-September, and in less than 3 weeks, it will be October, the month famous for, oh, I don't know, stock market crashes, and in election years, October surprises. We all know one's coming, okay? And for at least 18 months, a lot of us, including me, have still sat on the edge of our seat and said, hmm, I don't know if the November election's going to happen, right? And I bet there's a lot of you guys that still are thinking that. Let's just leave it there. What's going to happen in October? We might have gotten a tip here in the last 18 hours. Tony Blinken, the moron in Washington. Okay. I mean, this guy is about as dumb gets. Tony Blinken tipped his hand yesterday and said that the U.S. is on the verge of allowing Ukraine to use U.S.-made long-range missiles to go deep into the heart of Russia. Okay? So I don't know, what could that mean? Hitting oil refineries in southern Russia, hitting Moscow for all that matter, right? You know, again, go back to World War II and look at what targets Hitler had in Russia that he wanted to go after: the oil fields, the oil refineries, and the capital. Don't think that's changed, okay? They're not overly concerned. Hey, you know what? We're going to go knock out some polar bears in Siberia. That's not the point, okay? The moron running Great Britain, Keir Starmer, is in agreement. We need to let Ukraine use these long-range missiles. Even Poland came up and said that they're on board with letting Russia use the long-range missiles because, of course, Kamala Harris is always out there saying that, you know, Russia is going to attack Poland next. Now, I'm going to give you this. The relationship between the Russians and the Poles is not good. So, yeah, it's not like they are good friends. So are you ready? Because Putin's response to this would be the beginning of World War III. This would be NATO, the United States, attacking Russia. And somebody says, how? Because, gee, it's just U.S. equipment. And that would be like, okay, somebody's using a Chevy truck, right? And it's a little more in depth to that. The only way that Ukraine could use U.S.-made long-range missiles against Russia is if the U.S. was involved in it, because they're guided by U.S. satellites and they would have to be programmed by U.S. troops, because we're not giving we're not giving Ukraine access to our satellites or giving them the keys to program them. So if Blinken and Biden and Harris, of course, decide to give Russia the technology, the equipment to do this, to attack inside Russia, we've now just declared war on Russia. Nobody thought about that part, did they? Not a whole lot of news media out there telling you anything more than my Chevy truck analogy, not the fact that it's our military who have to do it. Well, of course, Russia knows this. Do not think for 1 second there wouldn't be any retaliation. There was a drone that hit a Ukrainian drone that hit an apartment complex in Russia, or in Moscow, a couple of days ago. It killed one person, and Russia immediately ramped up the offensives down in Ukraine. I mean, within hours. Putin has already said that would be a declaration of war. Can you imagine our October surprise is ICBMs raining down over the United States. Yeah, that might be something that would cause a blip in the election. I certainly don't think it would be, gee, let's reelect the party that just got us into World War III. So they're certainly not going to allow the election. We're in World War III. We need martial law. The military is taking over, yada, yada, yada. You can't tell me that the Democrat Party's comfortable at this point with Kamala Harris, because other than the busing people into rallies again, her support is dwindling like crazy, and the media is just making up numbers in polls right now. They talked about it in the debate the other day, and Trump keeps saying, we've heard this for months, he'd end the war on day one in Ukraine. I know exactly how he'll end the war in Ukraine. It's very simple. Hey, Volodymyr Zelensky, the checkbook's empty. You're not getting anything else. And then he has no choice but to say, okay, we're done. They asked him in the debate the other night, David Muir asked Trump, do you want Ukraine to win? Define win. If win is less Ukrainians getting killed, then cutting off the funding is a real good way to do it. Okay, Ukraine's going to lose some territory. It was all Russian-speaking territory anyway, people that wanted to be part of Russia anyway, right? Why are we in this war? Why are we, United States, not you and me, but the pudding pop brain people that are running the country right now, even playing this game? I mean, this is very scary when you go, and you've heard it from Republicans and Democrats alike, we are closer to World War III now than we have ever been, than we ever were during the Cold War, than we were during the Cuban Missile Crisis, ever. And it's all because the money laundering scheme that is going on in Ukraine, and Joe padding his pockets, and Volodymyr Zelensky padding his pocket. And I guarantee you that half of Congress is padding their pockets as well, if not more than half of Congress. And whether they're just invested in the military-industrial complex, or whether they are just as corrupt as Joe Biden is and has kickbacks coming his way and bribes, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not trying to scare anybody, because I pray to God this doesn't happen. But I want you to think just for a second what the U.S. response would be if all of a sudden, I don't know, pick someone, Iran, who is aligned with Russia, started sending missiles, if they had the technology, it was good enough, raining down on Washington, D.C. What do you think the U.S. response would be? We'd obliterate Iran. What do you think Russia's response is going to be if all of a sudden there's U.S.-made, U.S.-controlled missiles raining down on Moscow, or St. Petersburg, or Ufa, or any of the other major cities, or the oil refineries? Pick something. What do you think Russia's response is going to be? Maybe it's hit the United States. Maybe it's hit Europe. Okay? Let's say, for example, that it's more short-term, intermediate-term ICBMs, or intermediate range, and they do hit Poland, or they do hit Great Britain. Now we get into Article 5 of NATO again, right? Honey, we got a letter from the Department of Defense. Junior's been drafted. Okay? This is the fire they are playing with. This is how idiotic Tony Blinken is, how idiotic Joe Biden is, how idiotic both houses of Congress and all the people who keep funding Ukraine are. Define win the war. I define winning a war by no more people dying. That's when it's over. Wars are usually won when one side says, we don't have any more people to fight. Right? I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to open your eyes and let you know the stuff that our media won't tell you. If you notice in the link below what my sources are for this, it's the British media. It's not the US media, because the US media is not talking about it. It's the British media that was coming out yesterday. This is why paying attention to this stuff is so important. We're this close, guys, to nuclear war. We've talked about before about having potassium iodide. We've talked before about how to radiation proof a room in your house or a room in your apartment so you can stay away from the fallout, depending on how far it comes. We've talked about EMPs all over the place. It's time to take this serious, because if the Democrats are backed into a corner, which they are, which they have the weakest candidate ever in the history of the United States running for president, and they are doing everything they can to prop her up to make the people think that she has a chance of winning. Remember what happens. Joe's in the final days of his life. If Joe dies, Kamala becomes president. This is her introduction period to talk to, for little that she does, to let people know who she is. Because we still don't know. Does all this go down and Joe steps down and now Kamala's president? And now we go, hey, we're going to do martial law and Kamala Harris president, and there's no election. And oh, by the way, nothing you can do about it. Start looking at some of the patterns of what's going on. They call us conspiracy theorists all the time, right? Have been for decades. Preppers are conspiracy theorists. How many of our theories have come true? How many of the watch what happens in Europe and wait till it comes here things have you said for me? I don't know. Could we talk about months ago when we were talking about the illegal immigrants in Europe coming over, and watch what happens when it comes to the United States? I don't know. Ask Springfield, Ohio. Ask California. Ask anywhere. Ask Michigan. Ask Minnesota. We're right way more than we're wrong. I pray to God on this one I'm wrong. I'm not holding my breath, though. Pinball out.